This is Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Eloy Oakley is joining us. He is the president of the Long Beach City College, and he recently got involved with the Committee for Economic Development. They issued this report boasting California's post-secondary education performance, and through that involvement, he has been working with the Lieutenant Governor of our state, Gavin Newsom, who recently came down to Long Beach City. Backtrack a bit. How did this report happen, and how did you get involved with the Lieutenant Governor?
Well, the Committee on Economic Development did a report that sort of looked at post-secondary education throughout the country, and the Lieutenant Governor happened to be in attendance and really got interested in looking just at California. And so they decided to do one for California, which really focused from an economic development standpoint what needs to happen in California's post-secondary education. And the Lieutenant Governor brought it to California, asked me to be on a panel, and we've been helping him take this on the road throughout California.
And talk to us about his recent visit to LBCC. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Well, it was cool to have him. You know, he's a great speaker and he's very passionate about this issue. So yes, we had him at Long Beach City College along with a panel to discuss the report. It was very well attended, and it was really, really a great session.
Talk to us about the highlights of the report. I'm sure there are many, but give us the nuggets.
Well, the nuggets really are that California needs to get more out of its public higher education system in order to feed the economy that we need to have in California.
And when you discuss higher ed, I see maybe 2 or 3 legs of that, maybe even 4. You know, there's kind of the trade tech.
Right.
There's the community college, CSU and UC. I mean, that could be 2 or...
Right. What the report really focuses on is broad access institutions. Community college and the CSU are the broadest access public institutions in California. So the report really drills down on community college and the Cal State University system. The UC is in there as well.
Right.
But given the numbers that we need to achieve in California in terms of the number of adults we need to have some sort of credential in their hand, the community college and the CSU are really the way there, so that's what the report focused on.
And what did it say? Let's focus on either institution.
Right. Well, the report said we really have to do things different in California. We really have to relook at how our community colleges and the CSU function, how they function individually, and how they function together in order to produce more students, more adults with degrees, and to really focus on those underrepresented groups that really now make up the majority of our workforce.
I want to get a sense from you about where community colleges stand today in light of this report. I cast no aspersions when I say this. You know, when I was growing up, when I was looking at college, the kids that went to community college generally are the ones that were trying to get a second chance.
Right.
They had not done well in high school and they needed a second chance. It does not feel like that's the way it is today. Today, it's because of costs, because of location, because of a whole variety of reasons. Community college is not that place of last resort. Plenty of very bright kids start there and then matriculate. Right. Or not. How has that sea change impacted the way you do business?
Well, it's impacted the way we do business in very, very big ways. As you mentioned, it's not the same community college of yesterday that you and I went to.
Right.
Today, there is huge demand to get some sort of college credential because you can't get a job without it. When you and I went to school, there were still jobs that you can take without having a college degree.
But even aside from the need for even just an associate's,
right.
I know plenty of very bright kids from bright families who are, or well-heeled families, I should say, who are starting at community college voluntarily for different reasons, but often they like the smaller classes, they like the easier access, it's still less expensive. So how does that change the calculation?
Well, community colleges really have had to focus on those first 2 years of education to really prepare students to transfer because first, there's been a lack of capacity both at the CSU and the UC. This recession really devastated the access to the CSU. So students were sometimes forced into community college to take classes, or because of the tuition increases, they saw that investing in the first 2 or 3 years at a community college was much more cost effective. And because we've improved the transfer pathways, to the CSU from the community college, I think many families saw that as an advantage.
In terms of transfers, during the recession, we were seeing a lot of people transferring not to CSU, but to NAU or U of A or ASU. Have we thwarted that tide?
Not yet. I mean, unfortunately for us, fortunately for states like Oregon, you know, the majority of students in states like Oregon are from California, where they should be here. I think the governor is beginning to discuss that. The legislature is beginning to look at increasing capacity in the CSU and the UC, but we're still well behind where we need to be.
I think Long Beach City is unique in that it has, I think it's called the Long Beach Promise.
Yes.
Where it's LBUSD to Long Beach City to CSULB.
Right.
Do we see that model replicated throughout the state?
Yes, it's beginning to be replicated. As a matter of fact, I had the pleasure of listening to Timothy White today, the chancellor of the CSU.
Yes.
And one of the points he made was we need to replicate the Long Beach College Promise throughout the entire state. Not so much exactly what we do in Long Beach,
Right.
but that partnership between K-12, community college, and the CSU. We have to be more efficient. We have to work more closely together in order to help these students get from point A to point B.
And in the background, I believe we've discussed this before, there is a move afoot to consider whether community colleges should be permitted to offer 4-year degrees.
Right.
It happens in 20 other states. Why not California? Has that been considered, or was that considered as part of this report?
It wasn't directly considered in this report. The report really focused on increasing the number of students who have that credential in their hand. How it was done, they didn't get into it.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, I'd love to hear your views, especially as someone who some would argue is an innovator. You think about how you are the only campus, LBCC, that has gone to this intercession model.
Right.
So if any campus seems like it would be willing to take a shot and be Long Beach City, what do you think about this whole 4-year degree possibility?
Well, I hate to disappoint you, Brad, but I think the first thing we should do as a state is ensure that we have enough capacity in the existing institutions, in the CSU. If we say that we don't have enough access for our students, then the first thing we need to do is ensure that we have access in the CSU. There are many community colleges throughout the state that don't have a CSU in their neighborhood.
Right.
Those are places we should look
I
at for
understand.
community colleges
First.
offering degrees.
Right, yeah.
But first, community colleges need to do a really, really good job of the mission they have, and the CSUs need to do the same, and the state needs to ensure that we are funding those institutions to have the capacity necessary.
So in terms of funding, it's hard to deny that Governor Brown, in I don't want to say refunding, but in giving new funds as we've come out of the recession, he has focused more on K-12 than community colleges, CSU, or UC. Do we see that changing?
I think that's going to change. I think there have been many signs that the governor and the Department of Finance's staff are beginning to look at higher education, beginning to think about how they get more out of higher education, how to direct higher education, and how to support higher education. There's been a lot of effort in the K-12, and there needed to be a lot of effort in the K-12. It's a huge system. But I think they're going to begin applying more and more energy, particularly if the governor gets a second term, to higher education.
So where do families go from here?
Right.
There's so many moving parts. There's Common Core.
Yes.
There's LCFF. There's the new SAT coming around the pike. There's maybe 4-year community college degrees. Where do families go from here?
First of all, I'd say all these changes are because of pressure from families and community groups to improve our education system. So I think all of these changes are good for families. Now, they may not seem like it right away because there's still a lot of moving parts, but as these converge, as Common Core converges, as we improve transfer pathways, this is going to be a good thing for families.
It's a scary time. I mean, I have a 6th grader and a 4th grader, and I don't know where to go from here. I mean, how does she prepare for the SAT in 5 years? We don't even know what it will be.
Right.
His name is Eloy Oakley. He is the president of the Long Beach City College. My name is Brad Pomerance. We thank you so much for watching Charter California Edition. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined by Charlie Parkin. He is the city attorney in the city of Long Beach running for re-election. And so I want to speak with you first about your history in Long Beach. It's a long one.
It is a long one, Brad.
Talk to us about your grandparents.
My grandparents moved here in '44 during World War II.
Right.
At that time, my father actually was in the service in Europe. And when he was discharged from the military, he came to Long Beach to find him, and our family stayed here ever since.
And your father wound up working for the city as an engineer.
That's correct.
Tell us about Uncle Robert, though.
Uncle Robert, my uncle also went to work for the city as a criminologist at the police department, and he went to law school at night while he was working for the city, and went to work in the city. First, he was a city prosecutor, elected city prosecutor, and then he went to the city attorney's office and was the city attorney.
So, like uncle, like nephew, apparently, because he was the elected city attorney from 78 to 85.
That's correct, yes.
Which is quite, I mean, it's inspiring in a lot of ways. Think about it.
It is. I mean, both my father and my uncle are great role models.
Right.
And they both had long, distinguished careers with the city of Long Beach. So, yeah, I'm fortunate.
And Uncle Robert Parkin wound up being the presiding judge of the Los Angeles County Superior Court. He became a judge after city attorney and then became presiding judge.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
And so talk to us about how your uncle, I know dad, of course, but how your uncle kind of set the tone for you as someone who took a similar path, actually, was an attorney right away.
That's correct. That's correct. A similar path to the fact that we went to the same law school. But so it was a role model for me. And kind of I followed my father and started out in the engineering and figured out that I really wanted to be an attorney, and I really wanted to work for the city of Long Beach. And so it was really inspirational, and I was very happy to be able to accomplish that.
What's interesting about Long Beach is that it elects two attorneys to do two different positions. Some cities don't elect attorneys at all for legal positions. You have an elected city attorney and an elected city prosecutor. Talk to us about those distinctions.
Sure, that's a great question. It's the vast majority of cities appoint their attorneys.
Right.
And the vast majority of cities don't have an elected city prosecutor. So Long Beach is unique in a couple of those ways, as you pointed out. The city charter provides that the city attorney is the sole legal advisor for the civil matters, and the city charter also provides for a city prosecutor who handles the adult misdemeanors for the city of Long Beach, which I think is a benefit for the citizens of Long Beach. It gives a direct point person for those quality of life crimes that sometimes the DA is awful busy as it is with all their felonies and all the work they have to do. So it gives the citizens of Long Beach an added benefit.
But as city attorney, you have exclusive and sole responsibility for serving, I mean, the list just goes on and on. The city council, the harbor commission, the planning commission, water board, countless departments.
It's a wide variety. It's a medium-sized law firm with about 20 attorneys, and we have more complicated issues, I think, than almost any other city with, like you said, a harbor, an airport, an oil. We're the only municipality with an oil company. We have, all of those different areas that we have to be able to provide that legal service to our clients.
And Long Beach, second largest city in LA County, I think it's 7th in the state. I mean, this is a major city.
Yes.
We're not talking about a small city. This is almost 500,000 residents. Like you said, oil, harbor.
Beaches, marinas, waterways, yes. So we're constantly having new and different issues. We're out in front of a lot of different issues in the state of California.
What's so interesting about city attorneys today is that while you think of a city attorney, be it in LA or Long Beach or San Francisco, as focused on civil matters, city attorneys can engage in litigation which deals with quality of life issues in a civil case. So, for example, one of my favorite programs done in different cities, nuisance abatement.
Sure.
Not a criminal matter. You take it as a civil matter.
And you can, a lot of times with nuisance abatement, you can attack it in two different ways, either as a criminal matter or as a civil matter. In our office, we have a dedicated attorney, and we've done this for a number of years on quality of life issues. We work with the planning department, development services. We work with our council members where they have problem areas in the city. I'm proud of the person in our office. Last year, I think we used the eviction process that was allowed under state law to remove those people who are dealing drugs illegally out of residence, and we can evict them. And we go to the property owner and say, this person needs to go. And if they say no, then we do it, and we charge the property owner for that.
It's a fascinating strategy. You're not going after so much the perp,
Right.
but the individual that is allowing the perp to do what they do.
Absolutely. And we've found this to be very helpful in large complexes or apartments where maybe the neighbors are afraid of these people, or maybe it's grandma that's living there and
Sure.
it's junior that's doing the bad stuff. And when grandma has to move, we have found that that changes the family dynamics, and they're not allowing that to happen at their next residence. So we're seeing improvements in some of these areas where these activities are taking place, and it's a great tool for us to work with the police department. We probably review maybe 3,000 police reports a year to see if it qualifies for these type of action. We try and work with the property owners, and we get a lot of good success with the property owners. Sometimes the property owners are afraid of the tenants.
And welcome your
Yes.
involvement.
And they welcome it, and they welcome our letter, and they show that to the tenant and say, it's not us, it's the city's making, the big bad city's making us do it. We don't care how or who gets the credit. We just want those people gone, and we don't want it going on there.
It's undeniable that the Long Beach port is a major engine in this region, in this state, in this nation. Long Beach would not be what it is without the Long Beach port. That being said, there have been efforts to try to create a scenario whereby the port is not only an economic engine, but a friendly neighbor. And you have been working to green the port. And the results have been quite remarkable. Talk to us about the greening efforts.
Thank you. Absolutely. The port has really done an outstanding job, and that credit has to go to our mayor and our harbor commissioners and the port staff for a lot of hard work on a lot of different issues to green the port. One of the areas where our office was able to assist them was in this electrical deal that we just had approved by the California Public Utilities Commission, which is going to help reduce electrical rates for our tenants in the harbor. It's a fantastic deal because it allows our ships to be cleaner, not our ships, and to plug in and not to emit diesel.
That's the key, because I remember covering this issue 10 years ago in Los Angeles, where what would happen is the ships would dock and remain idle.
Yes.
And they'd still be on, and they'd be spitting out all this.
And they're burning fuel that's not real clean. It's bunker fuel, it's cheap fuel, and you're right. It really does make a huge impact, and you can see that impact today in our sky and in our air. We still have a ways to go. We're still working on it. But this deal is going to allow our tenants to be more competitive because we're going to get a reduced electrical rates. So we'll be able to compete with our competitors to keep our tenants here. It helps the environment, so it's a win-win for the city and for our tenants.
Speaking of the environment, you're also, this is an interesting case. Of course, like you said, Long Beach has oil in its midst, as does Signal Hill, and there was an action that went all the way to the Court of Appeal focused on oil well abatement funds, or abandonment funds, I should say. Talk to us about it. Try to get out of the weeds, if you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
For the lay people.
I was at that time I was assigned to litigation, and we were working. And I have a background in some oil, so we started holding back money. We're the trustee for the state of California, and so every month we send the state a check for their interest in the oil fields that are offshore that you see on our four oil islands. And so the city, for a number of years, has been setting aside the portion of the money that comes to the city so that when oil is gone, we can abandon the oil wells and get rid of the islands if we need to or if we want to. The state of California was saying, you know what, we'll worry about that when oil runs out. And we said, no, we need to be a good steward. We're going to set aside money every month so when oil runs out, we'll have a bank account that we can draw upon to abandon the oil wells. So we got into litigation with the state of California, and then the Court of Appeal agreed with us. They said, you're the trustee, you're doing something that is environmentally smart, environmentally strong, and it's the right amount of money. So after that litigation, the state went up to adopt legislation, and so we worked with them on a legislation to set aside and make an abandonment fund in the state of California to pay for the Long Beach tidelands.
They didn't try to go to the California Supreme Court?
They did not. They went to the legislature, and we worked with them, actually. So, it's kind of interesting. One day we're across the aisle from each other, and the next day we're up in Sacramento working with them. And so I think at the end of the day, it was a good result.
Okay, his name is Charlie Parkin. He is the city attorney for the city of Long Beach. He is running for re-election. My name is Brad Pomerance. We want to thank you so much for watching Charter California Edition. We'll be right back. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Doug Haubert. He is the city prosecutor in the city of Long Beach, just reelected in a landslide, if I may say. What was it, 70% of the vote?
About 74%.
Well, congratulations on that. I know that in your first term, one of your goals was to focus upon truancy. I guess you were prescient because Attorney General Kamala Harris recently came out with a report to talk about the wave of truancy. Surprisingly enough, in elementary school, those numbers are high. So talk to us about what you've done in truancy and what you'd like to do on a go-forward basis.
Sure. When Attorney General Harris was the district attorney for San Francisco, this was an issue that she identified early on. And there's definitely a correlation between truancy and crime later on in the life of an individual. Statistics show that those that are in state prison are more likely to have dropped out of school, and those who drop out are more likely to have been truant along the way. So we can identify, as a major predictor, truancy, and we can identify those who are likely to be at risk and engaged in crime at the earliest of ages. And you would be surprised how many 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders are just not regularly attending school. And it's not for the reasons you might think. It's generally, in many cases, the reason is the parents just don't value education, don't understand the value of education, and there's just not much of an emphasis to make sure that their child is regularly attending school.
What about those cases, though, where there's literally a transportation problem? There's a sick sibling, and it just puts the family into a complete tailspin. What do you do in those cases where it's less about just flaky parents and more about difficult circumstances?
Well, every situation seems to be different, and it is true that families have very different backgrounds and different reasons for missing school. But you'd be surprised how many kids have to take 2 or 3 buses and get up early in the morning, and they're still there on time. And those are the ones that make a great effort. And then you'd be surprised at how many kids live across the street from the school and still aren't attending on a regular basis. Obviously, the schools do a lot at the school site level. It's very rare that a truancy case rises beyond what the school district can handle and goes to the prosecutors. But when it does, it's up to the prosecutors to make sure that we do everything we can through interventions and sometimes encouragement from the courts to make sure that the children are attending school.
So as we move forward, I know that you're working with Kamala Harris, the Attorney General, on a new task force. What do you hope to do in your second term on truancy?
Well, with truancy right now, we're talking about what are best practices. Every school district approaches truancy differently. Every county has a different district attorney, and they have different policies and programs to address truancy. In LA County, the district attorney has hundreds of school districts that they have to deal with. You know, I only have one school district to deal with. That's
but a big one.
Long Beach Unified.
It's a big one.
It's a very large one, but I have the benefit of consistency. I have a school district that handles it a certain way. But we, of course, have to work closely with the district attorney's office because they handle juveniles in the truancy system. We handle adults. So if I bring a truancy case, if I bring a truancy case, it's against the adult, the parent or guardian of a child.
You're bringing the case against the adult. The DA brings the case against the juvenile?
Correct.
You'd think it'd be the reverse almost, but okay, that's the way it is.
Well, throughout California, the district attorney has jurisdiction over all juvenile cases. My office doesn't handle any juvenile cases.
I understand.
We handle misdemeanors, but only adult misdemeanors.
I understand. So good news on that front. You're marching forward. More good news, though, focuses upon crime. We know last year was a very significant year for Long Beach and most of Southern California. Drops in crime. Early reports for early 2014, crime continues to drop.
Well, it does. We had our lowest year in the history of crime statistics in Long Beach last year for violent crime. In other words, we have fewer violent crimes last year than in any year in the last 41 years. This year, at least year to date, we're about 3% below last year's number. So if things continue, and I don't want to jinx us, but if things continue, we may have another record-setting year. That's just violent crime. We're also happy that property crime, year to date, has shown a dip, about 13% reduction in property crime. Now, property crime is still a problem, and of course, if your home is broken into, if your car is broken into, that's the only statistic that matters to you. But in general, I think the people of Long Beach, the residents, the neighborhood associations, they've done a better job of making sure people are alert. They know what to look out for. They know when to report someone that looks suspicious. They know to lock their cars, lock their front doors. Things like that help reduce the level of property crime as well.
Why are we continuing to see drops in crime?
Well, we're not seeing drops in crime everywhere. In fact, across the country, a lot of urban areas have seen an uptick in violent crime.
But Long Beach is a urban area, and we keep seeing drops. What's going right, man?
Well, I think we're doing a few things right here in Long Beach. Fortunately, we have a very good police department. We've got good leadership in that department. I think you've interviewed Jim McDonnell. He's he's the chief of police here in Long Beach. But he comes with 30 years of experience, and his command staff is very good. But then all the way down to the rank and file, I think Long Beach is a fairly well-run organization, and the cooperation between the police department and the residents is kind of the key. We have very strong neighborhood groups, neighborhood associations. The police come to the neighborhood association meetings. They talk to them about the crime trends and statistics, and that helps to avoid a lot of crime.
Along those lines, some crime, but by no means a majority, committed by those that may be homeless. And I know that as part of your second term, you're looking to address the challenges of homelessness. Talk to me about what your goals are as we move forward.
Well, as you know, I had a series of things I wanted to accomplish in my first term. Really, one of the main things for my second term is participating in solutions to the homeless problem. The district attorney in Los Angeles, Jackie Lacey, has set up a task force specifically to deal with the homeless problem. Now, the homelessness is not necessarily a law enforcement issue or a prosecutor issue, but we're kind of in a unique position because you're right, a lot of homelessness eventually funnels into the criminal justice system, and what we do with them when they get funneled into the criminal justice system is very, very important. We have the ability to divert them to programs that may help with their problems. Some people have the problem of alcoholism, drug addiction, mental illness. Some people have a range of all three of those things, and how you can help that person is going to be different. But we can set up programs, diversionary programs, that allow them to get help, the help they need, and hopefully they won't be committing that same crime in the future. And I think that's this is a new area. This is a vision of the new district attorney, Jackie Lacey. I'm proud to be part of her task force dealing with the homeless problem. But Long Beach in particular, you know, on any given day, there are about 4,000 homeless adults and children on the streets in Long Beach. I don't think that number has changed much in the last decade when Long Beach first identified homelessness as an issue they wanted to tackle. But I think it is time to get a little more serious about what we do with the homeless population. It affects the economy in Long Beach, it affects tourism, but of course there's the personal impact on the families that this affects.
What about those that may be service resistant? Because we know so often there's a plurality that just they're just not interested. What do you do in that case?
Well, obviously those are very difficult cases. Long Beach is fortunate in that we have our own health department. Very few cities have their own health department. Most cities participate in the county health department system. So we have the ability, the flexibility here in Long Beach to do different things. Now you're right, not everyone wants services, but for those that do want services, because we have our own health department, they can arrange, it's easier, for example, for them to arrange a live-in treatment program. Live-in treatment programs are very important. If they're outpatient and the person is homeless, they're very unlikely to follow through with the treatment.
What about homeless children? That could be amongst the most devastating. And I'm not focused upon 17-year-olds. I'm thinking about children with, you know, a single mom or a single dad. What do you do there?
That's very, very sad. Fortunately, our school district it does work very closely with law enforcement. And I think they're more likely to be in a position to identify children that are homeless or quasi-homeless in a lot of cases. There are some children that attend school regularly, but they're living in a car.
Right.
They're living on someone's couch. And the teachers, you know, the principals, they're very familiar with these situations. And being in an urban area, they're equipped and trained to identify and to deal with those problems. But as long as, you know, you mentioned some people are service resistant. As long as you have the services in place, as long as you have a way to help someone if they want help, I think that's all a city can do. The reality is there always has been some level of homelessness, there always will be. But by having services in place, we can hopefully help those that want to get help to reach the goals.
Okay, his name is Doug Haubert. He's the city prosecutor in the city of Long Beach. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is Charter California Edition.